Welcome to the life of Caesar. I don't know what episode this is.
Who knows?
It doesn't matter because it's out of our timeline. This is a Doctor Who timey-wimey episode. How are you, Papa Bear?
I'm fair to middling. It turns out that other people have cooler names than me. We'll get to that later, but no, I'm very excited to be here tonight.
Yeah. Imagine somebody having a cooler name than Ray Harris Jr.
I can't.
It's shocking, really.
Not until now.
It's shocking.
Did I know?
Yeah. Inconceivable that anyone could have a name more interesting than Ray.
If you live long enough, you'll find someone. Trust me. It's going to happen to all of us.
We have guests on the show today. Matthew and Matteo Storm, hosts of the Lost Roman Heroes podcast. Welcome to our little show, Storm Men.
Yeah,
the Storms,
Stormmen.
Yeah,
they need some work.
I like that.
The Storm Men are very happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
Salutations.
Cool.
Wow. So we got Matthew is the father. Matteo is the son.
Allegedly.
Let's give people.
Let's say we look alike. So.
We do look.
I'm looking at the two of you on camera. I think. I'm not questioning this. Like Ray's children, we always question whether or not he is the father. But you two, think you're safe.
Doubt. Yeah.
My
doubts are
tell us a little bit about the podcast. I think by looking at your website, you've done 79 episodes that have gone public by the looks of it. Tell us about the show, why you did it, how you do it, the genesis of it, and then we'll get into our topic for the day.
Yeah, all about the money.
It was really for the money.
Good.
Yeah, okay. And the chicks,
and the chicks for my for my son, because nothing screams chick magnet like ancient Rome.
Oh yeah, ancient Rome.
I know,
podcast.
right? Of course, we all know that.
Yeah.
Actually, the truth is, I met my current wife, my best wife, at a Napoleon conference in Corsica. So it does pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, yeah.
Wow.
Eventually.
That is fantastic. So our podcast is called the Lost Roman Heroes Podcast. And we started it about 2 years ago. We just released episode number 80, Justinian. The first of several we'll do on Justinian and Belisarius and that whole cool stuff. But Matteo, why did we start this thing 2 plus years ago, in your opinion?
Well, it wasn't our idea, I don't think. I think we just talked about Rome so often that all of our family members started getting irritated, and they told us we should just record it instead of having the conversations out in the open.
They're like, don't tell us. Tell the world. Yeah. Leave us out of it. Tell the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Share this wonderful stuff with the world.
Anybody else, just not us.
Yeah. Just not us. Anybody. Like, I don't know about your family, but whenever I start talking about history with my wife, who, despite meeting her at a Napoleon conference, knows nothing about Napoleon and cares nothing for history, her eyes just roll up in the back of her head within about 10 seconds, and
the size.
She slowly picks up the nearest carving knife and never sure whether she's going to attack me with it or slit her own throat. Well, the congratulations on being a Roman history podcaster. It's an empty field. There's no one else doing it. It's really just you guys and us, I think.
Not
oversaturated.
Yeah, we've cornered the market. It feels pretty good.
Yeah, we've got.
No one else is even going to try to get in. Just us four.
There was a TikTok meme, I think, a year or two ago. Women going up to their husbands and saying, "How many times a day do you think about ancient Rome?" Did you guys see that? Sure, you did.
Indeed.
Yeah,
I do recall.
And I thought, really, it's not just us. There you go.
I think that was pretty.
The subject you've.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Embarrassingly so for the male of the species. Guys, the subject you've chosen to talk about tonight is Gallienus. Now, way out of our timeline. In our timeline, we are currently doing Vespasian. So you're forcing us to jump 200 years into the future here.
Pretty cool.
We have mentioned him briefly in passing in some of our shows before. In this series, when we were talking about Nero, we had Ed Watts on. I don't know if you're familiar with Ed. Oh, it's not in a book.
Did you fall off the chair? Oh, there it is.
I took all my muscles to pick this up. The Romans, a 2,000-year history that's just come out.
Awesome.
And I looked up Gallienus in it, and Gallienus gets about a page out of what's this, 700 pages. But when last time Ed was on the show, we did talk about him because I think about the rise of Christianity and persecutions and stuff like that. And then we have talked about him briefly on our Renaissance show, because we do another show we do lots of shows, but we do a show on the Renaissance, and we talked about, but at the beginning of the Renaissance show, we talked about the Dark Ages and how the Roman Empire ended up forgetting about science for 1,000 years, and Gallienus got a brief mention in that. But interesting character. I'm glad you chose him, because it forced me to read up on him over the last couple of days. But you guys are going to know a lot more about him than we do. For kids playing at home, we're talking about the crisis of the 3rd century here, the sort of long, nervous breakdown that the empire had between assassinations and plagues and invading armies. The empire was dying in slow motion, 20-plus emperors in 5 years. We've just finished doing the Year of the 4 Emperors, and we thought that was pretty bad. It gets worse.
Yeah.
The frontiers collapsing, the Rhine, the Euphrates, there's debasement of the coinage, local economies reverting to barter because money doesn't really mean anything anymore. It's a bit like the United States at the moment. The plague of Cyprian, religious experimentation and syncretism.
Run amok.
And yet, amid all of this, Gallienus emerges. A bit like you two, bit of nepotism going on. Son gets ushered in, and as I gather from reading up on him, his reputation has sort of been rehabilitated in recent decades. He got short thrift for a long time. It's been rehabilitated. Why don't we go back to, well, let's start with the crisis of the 3rd century. From your perspective, having studied this period more than we have, when historians talk about the crisis of the 3rd century, what exactly was going on?
First of all, let me say that the big caveat is that neither my son nor myself are professional historians. We are amateur podcasters that love this stuff, passionate about it.
No, listen. No, stop. Well, we're going to stop you right there.
Okay. We're amateurs.
Your podcast historians are better than real historians.
Couldn't agree with you more.
When real historians are at parties and people go, "Oh, you do a pod," they go, "Sorry, no, listen, I have to disclaimer here. I'm not really a podcast historian. I just teach it at a university."
Right.
We used to get criticized early on. We would get negative iTunes reviews saying everything these guys know they got from books. Yeah. And we used to find that hilarious because it was like, where do you think real historians learn stuff from? They get it from cereal packets? I don't know. But yes, no more disclaimers. You are real history. If you study history, you're a real historian.
You're among equals. Yeah. You're among equals.
Awesome. Let me just say, we are the real deal. And our podcast, Lost Roman Heroes, we love the stories that are not told as often. We love the people that stood up when Rome needed the most. We love the people that emerged were a little beam of light in the darkest hour. And for us, well, it doesn't get darker than the crisis of the 3rd century.
Exactly.
Good
and like
point.
you said yourself, like that author released a new book, 2,000 Years of Roman History, only one page mentioning Gallienus. Why is that? When we look back on it, Gallienus was the emperor that ruled for the longest time in the crisis of the 3rd century.
Good point.
What?
It's exactly why he's the character we wanted to bring forth today.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case.
Well said.
So for your listeners, we had Marcus Aurelius, a guy that it's easy to get behind. We all love the philosopher emperor. He dies in 180 AD on the Danube and leaves behind really perhaps the most horrendous choice you could possibly imagine as a successor. That was Commodus. We all know and love him. Excuse me, Caracalla, who was imagine Sith Lord.
Right.
Sorry, guys.
Right.
Commodus. I got it right the first time. So Marcus Aurelius to Commodus. Commodus takes this high performance vehicle that is the Roman Empire at its peak. We're in peak Pax Romana, and he crashes it into a tree. Then, Rome is experiencing pressures on her border like never before, Cameron, as you alluded to. And we go through some turbulence, but then we get the Severan dynasty, a guy named Septimius Severus, who appears to kind of pull things back together. And we're transitioning nonetheless to a slightly different Rome, out of the Principate into the Dominate, and a world of soldier emperors. But still, it seems like the pressures besetting Rome can be contained, right, my son?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the breaking point, yeah.
At the breaking point, but maybe we're pulling back from the brink. Then Septimius Severus dies, and you get the Sith Lord, the guy alluded to previously, Caracalla, and a few ineffectual successors in that Severan dynasty. And when the last of them dies, a guy named Alexander, all bets are off. And things really start to deteriorate in an incredibly rapid fashion. And to your listeners, and while it's hard to imagine, because you guys right now are in a sweet period in your podcast, in your timeline, we have, in a period of 18 years, 19 emperors.
Yeah, when I was taking notes on this, I kept writing the word usurper, and it got to the point I was just going to make a macro. I got tired of typing the word. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And like Cam said, we're patting ourselves on the back for doing the year of the 4 emperors. Please, bitch. So again, just complete chaos. And like you were saying, I mean, and at least for some of these guys, they get killed by their own troops. It's not like a foreign army comes in. I mean, it is total chaos, because if you don't respect the system, and you don't play by the system's rules, the system begins to fall apart. And that's exactly what you were describing. Being killed by your own men, that's got to be a sign of decay.
But without a doubt, Ray, and you know what? It's not just being killed by your own men, it's being elevated by your own men and then killed, and which is a key distinction. We're in a world where the Senate is no longer placing people on the podium. You're talking about an army on the Danube or the Rhine or in Africa that decides, you there, you're in charge. And by the way,
but this is what happened in the year of the 4 emperors, though. I mean, it was just a replay, really, of that 150 years later. It was just like, you know what? Who are you? What's your name? Yeah, you'll do. Are you going to promote me if we make you emperor? Do we think you've got the qualifications? All right, you got the job. You got 6 months. See how you do. If it's if we don't get a good enough payday in 6 months, you're out. The next guy's in. The Empire had been doing this since 68, 69 CE to varying degrees. This wasn't a sudden thing. This was just a rinse and repeat of what had been going on since Nero, really.
Cameron, that's true. But let's say it got put on steroids at this point, and and the Senate was completely sidelined. So you had guys that served for 6 months if you're lucky, or a month or 2 or 3. And when the legion said, you're going to be the emperor, you couldn't say no, because that was instantaneous death. So dead up front or dead after 3 months, it wasn't a very appealing alternative.
Yeah. Cam and I...
At least you got to be emperor for 3 months. So you got to...
Sweet life.
You got to get some nice toys. Yeah.
Well, Cam and I used to make jokes about trying to be the guys who have to inscribe the coins. Okay, who's the emperor now? Okay, let me see. Who's it now? Okay, fuck. Okay, let me start over. I mean, it must have been madness. But going back to Cam's point, so by the time we get to 235, when Severus Alexander is killed by his own troops, not only are you going to have those 18 or 19 emperors and short succession, but you've got the economic collapse, you've got the foreign invasions, you've got the, I'll just call it civil war, but at the very least, trade is affected when the borders aren't secure and inside your empire is not secure. So it's, like you said, that on steroids, because the whole system that is Rome seems to be spiraling out of control.
Spiraling out of control internally and externally. You're dealing with pressures that you've never seen before. And we kind of break them down into 3 categories. First, you have the Goths up in the Black Sea and kind of Danube region. The Goths, not a monolithic tribe, but an agglomeration of a bunch of scary dudes, oftentimes on horse, with big swords. Then on the Rhine, you have the Franks and the Alemanni, who are also groups of tribes coming together. And one of the things that I found super cool about this and quite frightening is that amongst the Franks was a little tribe called the Cherusci, the fellows responsible for the Teutoburg Forest. So you have the Goths, you have the Franks, and then in the east, you have the scariest ones of them all.
Big bad.
The big bad House of Sasan, a rejuvenated Persian empire that was no joke.
And they're going to come back.
Yeah, and this was like the peak of the Persian resurgence as well, with Shapur and a bunch of other military geniuses that I guess the Roman Empire
Tupac.
had.
It was Tupac Shapur, I think that was.
It was Tupac Shapur.
Tupac,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Well put.
Tupac Shapur.
It was his
Tupac Shapur.
great-grandfather. I think you'll find. Yeah.
So yeah.
Along the line.
Yeah, so we've talked about this a lot over the years in our show, but these tribes and empires, kingdoms that are on the borders of Rome, that have been subjugated, oppressed, they're always looking for opportunities to get revenge, to strike back. I remember when we were doing Julius Caesar 15 years ago, when we both had hair, we were talking about reading from his own writings during the Gallic campaigns. And I was actually re-listening to one of those episodes recently, and we quoted from Caesar where he said, "Listen, I get it. No one wants to be oppressed. Everyone wants their freedom." He was talking about why some of the Gallic tribes were pushing back, fighting back. He was like, "I get it. If I were them, I'd be pushing back against Rome too. Unfortunately for them, I'm not one of them. I'm me, and I'm going to crush them." But he was saying, I get it though. No one wants to be oppressed. Everyone wants freedom. Everyone wants to be able to decide their own thing. And this is always, every time Rome exhibits any weakness, whether it's at the Teutoburg Forest or in the 3rd century, or continues on obviously through to the sack of Rome, etc., etc. They're looking at pushing back, taking advantage, exploiting weaknesses, and if you can't even govern your own affairs, people are going to push back and look for opportunities to strike, right?
Yeah, that's certainly the case. And I think it's important, Kem, to keep in mind that when we talk about barbarians at the gates, they're barbarians kind of in parentheses. These guys are in quotations. Yeah. They have been fighting with the Romans, against the Romans for 3 centuries. So they're quite sophisticated. They understand Roman tactics. In many ways, their own tactics, for example, the use of horse archers and the like, were more sophisticated than anything the Romans were deploying on the eve of Gallienus' ascension. So these guys were scary. And the Sasanian Persians were an incredibly rich civilization, incredibly well organized, with the most powerful weapon that existed in the ancient world, the heavily armored cataphracts, heavy cavalry, which was unlike anything the Romans could put in the field. So, yeah, they could smell weakness, and they knew how to take advantage of it.
Wow.
A bit like Ray's wife. Let's talk about Gallienus and his upbringing. So you talked about general emperors before, which, in the period that we've been talking about is usually a good thing. What you were looking for in the 1st century ideally was a general that knew how to command an army, that had respect of the troops, knew how to give orders, keep the army at bay so they wouldn't turn on you. And when you ended up with these poor guys, I've always been quite sympathetic towards Nero and Caligula, who were basically Matteo's age. They're kids, and all of a sudden they go, "Oh, you're now the most powerful person in the world. Good luck with that." And you go, "Great. Where's the rule book? No rule book.
Just wing it.
Where's the instruction manual? Hey, I'm sure you'll be fine. Just make it up.
Use the force."
And like Matteo was telling us off air, they just wanted to party and do drugs constantly. And all of us, then Tacitus is coming along going, "Well, no, wait, that you can't do that." And they're like, "Hey, dude, I'm here for a good time, not a long time." And they didn't know what to do. So your young rich kid becoming emperor in the first century was usually a recipe for disaster for obvious reasons. I always say to Ray, if I woke up and somebody made me emperor, I reckon I would hold it together for 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, I'd be like, no, listen, I just put my pants on one leg at a time like anybody else. Just call me Cameron. No, you don't have to get me a drink. I can get my own drink. It's fine. I'll carry my own bags. It's fine. I reckon after about 6 weeks, I'd be like, you get naked, stand on one leg, feed me grapes. I don't think I'd hold out very long.
6 weeks is that's pushing it. That's pushing it.
I'd be proud of doing 6 weeks.
6 weeks
I think
is already
holding it together for.
It's not nothing,
Yeah, right.
When you're a god's son,
that's not nothing. No,
yeah,
that's right.
You need to have some
Yeah,
patience.
Divi Filius. I mean, that's pretty good. But Gallienus wasn't a general. He, as I understand it, he was cultivated, fluent in Greek, a bit like Marcus Aurelius. He was a philosopher. He was a deep thinker. He seemed to be a good guy. And then when his dad, Valerian, becomes Caesar in 253, he immediately pulls a Marcus Aurelius and says, "You know what? The empire is too big for one man to govern. I need a co-emperor. I need an Augustus." And he asked the Senate, for what they were worth, to ratify Gallienus as Augustus from day one. So 254, he's designated consul ordinarius. And like Marcus Aurelius had done with his adopted brother nearly a century earlier, they divide up the empire, and Valerian is going to go and handle the Persians. Gallienus is going to remain in Italy to repel the Germanic tribes that are giving them trouble on the Rhine and the Danube. And it starts off okay. It's a good plan. Not a bad plan at all.
Not a bad plan. And shortly thereafter, they also named a Caesar, which really showed the forethought of the family. And the Caesar was Valerian II, the son of Gallienus, who was probably Matteo's age, maybe a year younger when appointed. And he was sent up onto the Rhine.
Yeah.
that's crazy. So it's a family business. All
Family
right,
business.
all right.
For long.
What would you have done, my son, if you were sent up if I send you up to the Rhine to hold the line against the Franks? What's your first move?
I'm not sure. Probably exactly whatever Valerius II did, and I'd probably end up dead as well. Can't just
That's
send me
fair.
up there as
That's
a
fair.
representative.
Yeah, figurehead.
I'll stay in Rome.
Well, they both had, like you said earlier, they both had a tremendous. Basically, the wheels were coming off. You've got the Persians over here. You've got the Goths. You've got right across the Swiss Alps, and so they've got their hands full. And again, when I read, I'm not going to jump ahead, but when you read about Gallienus' life, I'm like, did he ever sleep in the same bed twice, except for 1 year? This man is constantly going back and forth. That's in the future, but the point is they are both very busy. And Cam, you're right. It's a good idea. Let's split the empire. You take here, I'll take over there. But even then, they are hard pressed from day one.
Yeah, and what they really needed to turn the tides in their favor was a swift and decisive victory over the Persians, so that they could reinstill the confidence in the power and authority of the emperor, and attempt to settle things. So,
by the way,
Right.
I think Matteo's point is really important because you had the barbarian threats to the north and the west, but the eastern frontier was really the existential threat, because you had the other guys were interested in smash and grab raids, the Goths, the Franks, etc. But the Persians were interested in retaking the homeland and governing from the Bosphorus. And they had upon their ascension in 253, the Persians had just sacked Antioch, which was the capital of the Roman East. So that was really the key.
Right.
The Persians had obviously been a major power since, the days of Alexander. Before Alexander, Xerxes, we did a whole series on Alexander for many, many years. We love the Persians. And then, we talked about Crassus going to take on the Persians in whatever it was, in the 50s, I guess, BCE, and ending up with gold poured down his throat.
Oh, yeah.
I called Elon Musk the Crassus of the United States for a while there. It looked like he was going to end up with molten gold poured down his throat. He's kicking on.
Yeah.
So far, yeah. And Julius Caesar then was going to go get revenge for Crassus before
And then Antony.
he was assassinated. And
Mark Antony
the
too,
whole
right?
series of guys.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Augustus did a deal with the Parthians, with the Persians. They had peace for a while, but they've been problematic and a serious threat to Rome since Rome's been around, since before Rome's been around. Obviously, one of the great powers, had their own problems, own political issues, dynastic wars, but they're trying to get back on top. So how does it go for Valerian when he goes to do what Caesar didn't get a chance to do?
Love to say that it went swimmingly, and it started out pretty good. So he took back Antioch. He started getting control of the East, and then he got an idea. He got the avenging Karhai idea. Let's march into the East. Let's take on Shapur directly in his homeland. And that's precisely what he did.
A completely new and original idea.
I'm going to be the one to
Never
take
been
it to
tried
the
before.
Persians.
Yep.
So he put together in the year 260, I think it was something like an 80,000 man army. We don't know the exact number. And he marched east. And somewhere outside of Edessa in 260, the Romans lost a fantastic battle to Shapur. And that's where things get a little fuzzy. We don't know exactly what happened next, but we know that somehow Valerian wound up being taken prisoner by Shapur after the battle. Some say that he went to negotiate a peace. Others say that he was simply taken in battle. But guys, this is the first time that a Roman emperor has been taken alive. They've died before, and they've died recently, and they'll die some more in the future. But the first time that they were taken alive.
Ooh, humiliating. Yeah. Yeah, to say the least.
And Ray, it gets even more humiliating because while we don't know exactly what happened, there are legends. And none of them are particularly charitable for poor Valerian. One is that he was taken, killed, gold down the throat, and became a drinking vessel. So that's option one.
Whoa. Sorry.
Option two is that taken captive, and he was used principally as a stepping stool to help Shapur get up onto his horse.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And option three.
I used to use Ray like that, but Ray was too short for me to get up on the horse, so
it wouldn't work.
Ray had to be kneeling on somebody else in order for it.
It just got complicated. It got complicated. We couldn't afford it, so we just
like a human pyramid at the end of it. It was just
Roman emperors make better bow rest.
Especially on the war horse. Maybe on the the everyday horse it worked, but not the war horse.
Yeah, the pony.
The pony.
Yeah.
So and option number three is that he was taken captive and lived out the rest of his years in captivity as some kind of perhaps honored guest, along with a good chunk of his army. And there's some archaeological evidence for this. There is the remains of a bridge somewhere deep in Persia called the Band-e-Kaisar or something along those lines. I'm butchering the name for sure, but it is a Roman style bridge built right around this period of time, and many believe that may well be the case. Anyways, there's a super cool image I want to share with you guys at a place in Iran called Nakhche-e-Rostam, which I'm definitely butchering, which shows Shapur on his war horse and Valerian on foot, captured by the Persian King of Kings' side. Anyways, Crassus part 2.
And that's it. That's in Shiraz in Iran, I think, up on the wall.
Yes.
So before he goes to Persia, though, Valerian, quote unquote, persecutes the Christians.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
we've in our Renaissance show and in other episodes we've done on Nero, we've talked about the so-called persecutions of the Christians, and it's interesting. I also made a documentary about Christianity some years ago, early Christianity, and where it comes down to us through early Christian historians like Eusebius, the persecution of the Christians. But as we've talked about on the show over the years, what's really going on in this case, Nero's a separate thing. I don't believe the accounts of Nero and the Christians are accurate. I think he was probably going after the cult of Isis, not really the Christians, because that's how it comes across in Tacitus. I think that story's been corrupted over the centuries. Well, there are, I don't know about debunked because we don't have a lot of evidence, but if you read Tacitus's account of it, which is pretty much the only real near contemporary account that we have, it doesn't sound like Christians he's persecuting, and Nero had this relationship with the cult of Isis that had gone bad when his lover died, etc., etc. Anyway, but when you look at the 3rd century, 4th century so-called persecutions, what I think you've got going on, correct me if your understanding is different, but what you've got going on is there are various times in the empire, and as we said, it's crisis times. There are the political instability, there's problems on the borders, there's plagues, there's famines, there's all the usual stuff that you're dealing with when you're running a big empire in this period. And from time to time, the emperor would decide, look, we've obviously upset the gods. We all need to get together. We need to renew our relationship with the gods. We need to all do a sacrifice. I need everyone. Let's band together as a people. Come on, people. Everyone band together. Everyone burn some meat, eat some meat, sacrifice to Mars or sacrifice to whoever it is going to be this week. In order to save the empire, we need to save the empire. We need to come together. We need to sacrifice. Then you've got 2 troublesome groups in the empire who refuse to do this. You've got the Jews who refuse to do it. And in our main series, we're still dealing with the first Jewish-Roman war. Titus has just gone in to mop up after his dad becomes emperor. But I think by the time you get to the 3rd century, the Jews are getting a pass on a lot of this stuff. They've been beaten up. Temple's been destroyed a long time ago. They've been moved around. But they're going, yeah, look, okay, you guys have got a history of being weird and culty, and we're gonna give you a pass on this for now. The Christians, on the other hand, yeah, you're new. You were just invented last week. You don't get a pass for this. You have to. I want to see your certificate. I want to see. Look. And there's actually, when you read Eusebius, I did this when we were doing the Dark Ages stuff, we did this in quite a lot of detail. When you go and read the earliest accounts that we have of this in the early church fathers, you see quite plainly, and I'm thinking more about Diocletian more than the one of Valerian, but you see quite plainly generals saying to Christians when they've been told they have to pull them into line. Listen, just eat the meat. I don't care what you spit it out when you go home. Don't believe it. Believe it. I don't really care what you believe. I just need to check this box.
Yeah.
If I don't check the box, I get in trouble, and that ain't happening.
Yeah.
So just
do it.
Say what I need you to say. Yeah. Sign the bloody piece of paper. Eat the meat. We can all go home and go home to our families. That's
all you got to do. That's all.
But the Christians, it wasn't all of them, because some Christians during this time, as I understand it, were happy to do that, and then they later were called apostates and got into trouble and were, there was big battles, inter-Christian battles with what to do with the apostates later on. But some of them, Christianity was a death cult early on. Some of them wanted to die. They wanted to follow Jesus and some of the stories of Paul and Peter and James from the first century. They wanted to die for their beliefs. They were martyrs. It was a death cult / martyrdom cult, and they were and it was just problematic. From the Roman perspective, it was we have famines, we have wars, we have plagues. You guys are just making life difficult because you're not willing to get on board with the gods, and it's just not acceptable in the Roman Empire. It was kind of a weird pagan theocracy at various times where you had to get on board. And so the Christians kind of brought it upon themselves by being fundamentalists. So when we call it a persecution, it makes it sound like they deliberately set out to punish Christians, but really Christians were just breaking the law, and the Romans were like saying, sorry, you can't do that. You're putting us all at risk by doing that. Do you have a different view?
No, not at all. We're in complete agreement. We talk about this all the time. Maybe Diocletian was a little different. Maybe Diocletian, Galerius were really out to stick it to the Christians, but at this period of time, Decius, who preceded Valerian and Galerius and Valerian himself, I think they were doing precisely what you said, which is, boys, we got trouble. We got trouble, and we suspect that trouble is coming from some lack of, let's say, public faith, public instances of faith and doing the right things by the old gods. Burn a lamb, kill a lamb, give me the little ticket that shows that you killed the lamb, and we're good. And then you can go on down your happy little path, worshiping whomever you'd like, and we'll probably put him in our pantheon if he's good and interesting, because we would always love, another god can never hurt. So
more is welcome.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think that Valerian is definitely in that vein. He was not out to get the Christians. He was out to fix a problem. It was a question of law and order and doing right by the pantheon. So gets a bad rap. A lot of these guys get bad raps.
Yeah. So bringing all that together, just 2 points. One, like you said, we don't know exactly what happened to Valerian. The point is, he is now out of the fight. There is just his son Gallienus, who's now in charge, and he's got to deal with everything that he was hoping to avoid. He was just, focused on the western part of the empire. And I don't want to go too far, and I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but I think you're right. I think the father was like, this is the Roman law. If you Christians break the law, we got to punish you. That's just the way it is, because we need internal peace. Whereas, as we're going to find out very quickly, Gallienus is like, I haven't got time for ideas. I got to go with whatever's the most practical solution. And if not being so hard on the Christians gets y'all to calm the fuck down, then that's okay with me, because I've got 27 battles going on right now, and I don't need another headache that's labeled you Christians. So I'd read somewhere that Gallienus was pretty much just a fireman. He's just putting out fires. Look, I don't have time for ideas. I don't have time for a philosophy. I don't have time for a vision. Screw all that. I'm just trying to survive. And so when he does get to his own ideas about how to deal or not deal with the Christians, I think he was just trying to be practical. And he's probably exhausted as well, because he's just got other fires to put out all at the same time.
Well, he wrote a very famous song.
Oh, good. Did he?
It did. Yeah, it was. He said, "I got 99 problems, but a Christian ain't one."
And it went huge hit. Huge.
It was huge at the time.
Very well
People
done.
didn't give him credit for it.
It was the song of summer.
He did it under a pseudonym.
Yeah.
He actually teamed up with Tupac Shakur.
And they turned into
it was
a rap.
Ice-T.
Yeah.
Ice-T picked it up later on.
Anyway, little known fact there, Norman.
Jay picked it up.
Ray, I think you're right. He was a pragmatic guy, and so shortly after Dad died, he issued his famous Edict of Tolerance, which would become a model for Constantine's Edict of Milan that would come several decades later. But I think that was his basic attitude was, let's do whatever we need to do. Let's not get caught up on niceties. Rome needs to survive.
Oh, I like that. Well said.
And it's hard to figure out what percentage of the empire were Christian at the time. As I understand it, at this juncture, it's not a lot. And maybe bigger in the eastern part of the empire than the western part of the empire, because Paul had done a lot of good work down there early on, and you had Antioch, and you had like these far Greek, parts of the empire where it had been bubbling away. The Greek parts where
Alexandria as well.
People were a little bit more open to this. Exactly. Egypt was big. Yeah. So maybe 1%, maybe 3%. It's not nothing, but it's not 30%, 40%. I think even by Constantine's time, we're talking maybe 10% of the empire at most. But here it's a lot less, but it's just it's a problem. It's internal problems that he doesn't really need. But it's one of we don't have a copy of his edict, unlike Constantine's. We don't really know a lot about it. But it's only one of many reform things that he does. And this is, I guess, why you guys like Gallienus, is he really did try and modernize the empire. I believe he created like the first standing rapid response army, like a mobile cavalry corps in Mediolanum or Milan.
That's right.
Yeah. That's one of the coolest things about him, Cameron. I'm glad you mentioned it, because he was experimenting on the fly. Like I liken it to racing down the highway at full speed and trying to change a tire. That's precisely what he was doing on a daily basis. So that innovation that you just mentioned is something that really bears repeating. Like typically, as you guys know, in the history of Rome, dating back to the days of the Republic, the cavalry had been a tiny little appendage to the legion. So legion, 4,000 some odd men, and maybe you had a 200 or 300 man cavalry force. It was an afterthought. It certainly wasn't a branch of the military. And this guy, Romans have been really good over the centuries of borrowing from their enemies what worked. Like Scipio Africanus did with Hannibal, so too this Gallienus guy did with both the Persians and the Goths, and their heavy and light cavalry. So he developed this force. We don't know how large it was. Estimates range from 10,000 to 50,000. That consisted entirely of cavalry, both light and heavy. And one of the things that Gallienus noticed, which was a massive problem, and it's something that Aurelian would address in the not too distant future, is that Rome's concept of defense over the last few centuries, and it had worked beautifully up until now, is a hard shell on the outside and a soft inside, because nobody could get past the frontier. And that's one of the things that really went away in the crisis of the 3rd century. So with this heavy cavalry force, he was able to react, as you said, Cameron, to any incursions wherever they might occur, and quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most important things behind our love for Gallienus, is that, he actually set a bunch of trends that European monarchs, rulers would go on to follow in the centuries to come, whether that was his great military reforms in the cavalry, or actually by taking a foreign wife as a marriage. He took a second wife who was a princess of a German tribe called the Marcomanni, in an effort forge alliances with other nations, which up until now would have probably been considered illegal.
Oh yeah.
Not only just for a man of senatorial class to take a non-Roman wife, but the emperor himself. So
whatever needed.
Well, yeah, we know
he'll do whatever needed.
We know how Augustus used propaganda about Cleopatra.
Oh yeah,
when he and Antony were going at it, exactly. All of these fears that he was going to move the empire to Alexandria, or et cetera, et cetera.
Just the worst thing.
Was this Salonina, or is this his other wife?
Maybe not.
Oh right, yeah.
Salonina was the Roman wife.
It was the second wife.
I forget what the name of
Pipara.
I think that's right.
Pipara, yeah, she was the daughter of Attalus, the king of the Marcomanni.
That's right.
Right.
Whatever it takes.
I mean,
two wives is what it takes.
Yeah. Yeah, at least. My wife comes from Utah. She, her people used to have 30, 40 wives.
They get it. They've done so well for themselves.
The more the merrier. Yeah. Exactly. I've had 3, but they were all one at a time. I never
Yeah.
tried to combine them, which is
that's
probably
good.
my mistake.
Oh,
Where
well.
you went wrong.
I always found one at a time was hard enough.
Man, brother, preach. Anyway, can I just ask? And this probably won't take long. Matthew, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned something about the Senate, and if I could just get you to talk about that a little bit more. Whereas where Gallienus is going to go. Look, I know that you're traditionally you guys help me rule, and you're the elites, and you're well educated and cultured, and you expect people to listen to you, but I'm doing nothing but putting out fires. And let's be honest, some of you have enough money where you've maybe backed usurpers and you kind of working against me. I need people of merit. I need people who can get shit done. I don't care where they're born. I don't care what their education is. We're getting rid of, and not that this hasn't already happened, but I'm not so focused on where you're born or what family or your bloodline. I need competent people. And when he looks at the Senate, he finds a lot of them are not qualified for what he needs, putting out all these fires.
Yeah, Ray, that's absolutely the case. Even though he himself was of senatorial rank and his father was princeps senatus, he said it goes back to this whole pragmatic streak in Gallienus that we love so much. He forbade senators from holding senior military command as a matter of right. He reserved the right to appoint senators to important commands, but they could no longer kind of prance in to the legionary camp and say, "Hey, boys, I'm here.
I'm in charge."
I'm in charge." And this brings us to after the military reforms, the rapid the cavalry force that he instituted. His ability, guys, to choose brilliant sub-commanders, to spot talent. Matteo and I talk about this all the time. The true test of a great Roman hero is his ability to find people that are even better than him, to complement his strengths, and not to be afraid to put them in positions of power. Gallienus was masterful at that. It would bite him in the rear end on more than one occasion, but the men that he...
And not in the good way.
And like literally, in a really terrible way.
Not to deceive you.
It would bring about his end, spoiler alert. But he had guys like Aurelian and Probus and Claudius Gothicus in his senior command. And these are the men that would lead us ultimately out of the crisis of the 3rd century. I don't think it was Diocletian, and I don't think it was Constantine. I think it was this cabal. And most of them were Illyrians. Like he spotted something special in these dudes from Serbia. Mostly.
Yeah, because you take all the, like you said earlier, all the Nepo babies out of the army, and what do you have? Suddenly, the second command is a guy who's been in the forces for 25 years already. Yeah. So all the career military men finally had the opportunity to exercise their experience, and it definitely went a long way for stabilizing the empire for another 1,500 years.
And this is something that Napoleon did as well after he took control after the French Revolution. Is okay, let's get rid of all of these, rich dudes who think they know how to run a military, and actually get military guys with some skill and talent to be my marshals of the empire, and promoting people of talent and skill rather than just somebody who's made the name for himself because his daddy was rich or whatever.
Exactly.
But I was going to say, as much as we love Romans, we also love the guys that stand up to Rome. We love the guys that are willing to stick it to the empire. And Gallienus has to deal with Postumus after the loss at the Battle of Edessa, where his dad gets captured. He basically loses Gaul. Caesar fought long and hard to get Gaul under control. Here they are 300 years later, and he pretty much loses Britain, Gaul, that whole region to this guy called Postumus, who, as you indicated before, was one of these guys that had been trained by Rome, how to fight Roman style. We've seen a lot of these guys in the Year of the Four Emperors as well, and even going back before that, Teutoburg Forest, etc. Guys that were trained by Rome, they were part of a Roman legion or auxiliary cohort, and then they go, you know what? It's not that hard to fight Romans. You just got to bring Roman know-how.
Yeah.
Tell us about Postumus.
We're going to say something a little controversial here, which is, did he really lose the West? So he hand-selected Postumus, put him in charge, asked him to look after his son. This is true, but more importantly, to manage the legions on the Rhine. And it would seem to us that Postumus, you can say that he rebelled. I think, like so many of these guys in the crisis of the 3rd century, the legions didn't really give him a choice.
That's right.
It was either you accept being raised on a shield or you die. He opted for life. He chose life.
And what did he
Good
do?
call.
He stayed on the Rhine frontier for 7 years. I mean, it's not like he ever tried to make a play for Rome. And it wasn't until
Good
his
point.
troopers became fed up with his what's the word called, neutrality or passiveness, that he eventually had to take action. So
and he would ultimately wind up being killed by his own troops. But he stayed, as Matteo said, on the Rhine. He ruled well. He ruled as a Roman emperor. He made no move against Gallienus. And so I think, as you were saying up front, Cameron, that this job was too big for one man. And that's why from the get-go, the family of Gallienus, he and dad split things up. It was still too big for one man. In fact, even more complex. And so to some extent, this guy was sort of a proxy. Yes, he did kill Gallienus' son, which was...
And he minted his own coins, and he had his own senate and consuls.
Yeah, but he kept things together. He didn't allow Gaul to slip away from Rome, and he set the stage ultimately for Aurelian to reintegrate it into the
And if
empire.
you were a Roman living in between the Gallic heartlands and northern Italy, I mean, for you, nothing would have changed. I mean, life would continue as it
Good
had.
point. Yeah. Well, you and I read this somewhere. So not only are his men saying you were either going to accept this position as emperor or we're going to end you. The other thing was, because Gallienus was spending so much time and attention and resources in the East, the West, by their perspective, was being ignored. They certainly weren't being supported enough. So it was almost like we have to take care of ourselves, because clearly this guy is not so much that he won't, is that he can't. And so it was like self-preservation. But from Gallienus's point of view, this was rebellion and it needed to be put down.
Yeah, and it was around this time that what you're speaking about right now, it would be an epidemic that would plague Rome until the very fall of the West, which would be the Gallic aristocracy and the Gallic provincials seeking secession. You know, in many ways, they're just like Texas, like the Lone Star State.
Ooh, fighting words.
Well, I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way at all. That's an awesome.
No, we love Texas.
It's the mentality. Absolutely.
Exactly.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Where do you guys live, by the way? I didn't even ask you.
Florida.
What part of the States are you in?
The best state in the world.
We're in Miami, which is sort of a little island loosely associated with the United States of America.
Ooh. All right. Just keep the alligators and crocodiles down there, and we're good. That's all.
I've been to Miami many times. I love Miami.
Oh, it doesn't get better.
It's fun. Okay, so we've got this situation where we've got the Gauls that split off. Maybe not. You think maybe there's some sort of a deal between Postumus and Gallienus, where they're somewhat frenemies?
I would say
An unspoken agreement.
Gallienus, listen, one of the things we like about him is, would he like to have taken Gaul back? Yes, absolutely. But there was only so much gold and blood, Roman blood, that he was willing to expend to do so, as opposed to the guys running rampant in the 5th century, to Matteo's point, that were gleefully hacking away at fellow Romans. I think this guy, at the end of the day, said, listen, frontier is first priority, and I'm going to let him have at it for the time being. And similarly, in the East, you had this kind of a situation where after Valerian was taken as a footstool, you had a couple of Roman kind of usurpers that tried to take control of the East, a guy named Macrinus, and I forget the other guy's name. They didn't last for very long because a tiger rode out of the desert, one of the most extraordinary men, we think, in history, which is Odenathus of Palmyra. And there's another great example of Gallienus saying, hey, listen, would I like to have the East? Yes. I don't have the ability to do so now. I'm going to give you my blessing to rule the East in my name so that it doesn't completely fall away and dissolve.
Which is another great quality about Gallienus, because it seems that he just consistently put the state above his personal life, his family, his reputation.
Yeah.
I mean, he went out of his way to completely alienate all of the richest men of the empire just so that he could try to keep the system that's been here for hundreds of years alive. So
yeah,
if more leaders would put the state above themselves. Go ahead, Cam.
I was going to say, the more you tell me about him, the more he kind of reminds me of Augustus. He's trying to do practical things that creates peace, opportunity, stability throughout the empire, even if it means doing things like when Augustus signed a peace deal with the Parthians. He got criticized a lot for it, as much as you could criticize Augustus at that period. It wasn't very Roman. He didn't march in there and kick their asses and come back with heads on spikes. He was like, listen, we got bigger things we need to fix, let's just agree to some sort of a peace deal with these guys and we can make Rome great again.
Yeah, because, it seems like in all the great wisdom that Rome has to teach us, most of their great leaders just lacked foresight. They were very temporal creatures, I'm here on Earth right now. What can I accomplish?
Yeah, let's go glory. It's about personal glory. And you never get the sense with Gallienus that it was about that. He had his eyes on the prize. The prize was survival of Rome, and he was willing to make compromises along the way in order to achieve the goal. I think that's right.
Right. Yeah.
We often laugh about the assassins of Julius Caesar. It was in their planning meetings. It was like, step 1, kill Caesar. Step 2, let's not worry about step 2 right now. Okay, let's
step 2.
Focus.
Yeah, we'll talk later.
Stop. You're overcomplicating things here. Let's just kill Caesar. We'll worry about step 2 once we kill Caesar.
Let's meet next Tuesday.
You're overthinking it. You're overthinking it.
Yeah.
The most impulsive group of people.
Yeah. So if I can make an executive decision here, so we're kind of getting near the end of Gallienus's life. It's been an hour, so we really do appreciate your time. But so Gallienus is in the East. Is it?
Since when have you and I ever said, "Oh, it's an hour, we got to go"?
Well, we're
here.
We have guests.
It's taken us weeks to organize this. They got nothing. They're in Florida.
We got nothing better to do
in Miami.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's nothing to do at nighttime in Miami.
Okay, I'm just gonna put this out there. So is it Aurelius? I don't know if I'm saying the name right. Aurelius revolts. This is what we're hinting at.
Aureolus.
If you're saying it, chances are you're not saying it right.
Yeah. So this is the second time he's going to revolt against after Gallienus forgave him for revolting the first time. Anyways, so Gallienus has got to run back. So not only does he have the posthumous question of Gaul, but now he's got this guy who's turned on him again. But this guy, I don't think truly appreciated, because by this time, Gallienus has learned the science of traveling as fast as you can. I don't know if his horse could fly, but it certainly seemed like it, because he flies back from the east before Aurelius can even move. And so at least, to a degree, if they're going to fight on Gallienus's terms, because he rushed from the east. And I don't think he's going to forgive this guy a second time. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think he's pissed at this point.
Yeah,
so this guy was the head of the cavalry that he put together in Mediolanum, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, he was the head of the cavalry, and then he was demoted after the first sort of insubordination, which was part of the reason why he was pissed. He was left behind in Mediolanum when Gallienus rode to the east. We neglected to mention why, because the Goths had made a massive incursion into the Eastern Empire, made it all the way down to Athens, burnt Athens to the ground. Yeah. And he wanted in on that action, and he was left behind instead to tend the store in Mediolanum.
Guy.
Yeah, poor guy. So
So
Gallienus charges back, as you said, Ray, flew back on Pegasus, and met Aureolus outside of Mediolanum for a major battle. Crushed Aureolus, who managed to escape back behind the sheltering walls of Mediolanum. And that brings us to kind of the last and sad chapter, which we don't like talking about, but we could.
Yeah. So what happens?
My son?
You got this one.
All right. Well, so first of all, A siege was set up. Gallienus personally manning the siege. We didn't mention this about him, guys. Gallienus was an emperor that led from the front consistently.
And a famed warrior.
Known for his personal valor. At some point, legend says he actually challenged Postumus to a duel. Let's not have good Roman soldiers die. Let's just do this man to man and may the better man win.
Which also very selfless.
Cool.
Yes.
Dude.
Yeah.
I guess that offer was rejected. I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was rejected. Postumus said something to the effect of, "Hey, I'm an emperor. I'm not a gladiator, so no thank you."
There you go. Right.
But so late one night, legend says, again, legend, because we don't know for sure, Gallienus was either at the table drinking and carousing. That's kind of the senatorial version. Senatorial historians hated Gallienus, which is one of the reasons why the old historical sources treat him so poorly. That he was just lying in bed fast asleep. And a soldier rushes in and says, Augustus, our enemy Aureolus is about to flee from the city. And Gallienus dashes out of the tent, doesn't think about putting on his armor, leaps on a horse, and starts racing to the walls. En route, he was murdered by one of his own senior commanders with a lance in the side. And that's the end of a guy that lasted for 15 years, awash in chaos, doing everything he possibly could.
And this was, I think, September of 268. Does that sound right?
That sounds right to me. Yes, September of 268.
Well, the last thing I'm going to say is that I'm sorry, Ken, I'll let you have the last word. The last thing I'm going to say is when I read about this guy, then I zoomed back, and y'all have kind of touched on this. I almost see his reign as transitory. So it's like, again, no vision, whatever. He was just putting out fires, but he held it together. Yes, the two ends came off, but the core of what the Roman Empire was still there. It was still intact, and he still had it under his control. Yes, people turned on him all the time. He was invaded left and right, but he held the center. And considering it's called the crisis of the 3rd century, you can't ask for much more than that.
Absolutely not. I mean, I completely agree. I think that, also because of his expert foresight, he was able to pick characters like
Aurelian?
Probus, eventually setting up the resurgence of the Roman Empire. So I think that it's important to note that all the emperors before him, they immediately went out to just go fight the other Roman generals, right? I mean, the state was neglected. So I think that he gave the Roman state 15 years of a breath that, eventually set up Aurelian and Probus to do the consolidation that would
Restitutor Orbis.
Exactly. That would keep the Roman Empire alive.
Well said.
So, flesh out for me why you think he was killed by his own men. What were the gripes that they had against him at that point?
I think any person with power at this point would have probably felt very alienated by Gallienus. I mean, he didn't have any resounding success to speak of, which in ancient Rome is already the chopping block, right? I mean, if you're not kicking ass, you're getting kicked in the ass.
It's like Ricky Bobby, that famous philosopher, said.
If you're not first, you're second. So
you're last.
Or you're last. Yeah. I guess. If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah.
So I mean, apart from the fact that all of the Roman senators surely wanted him dead, all of his senior officials, they wanted the top spot as well. So I don't think he had a friend in the world.
Right.
So just too mmany years of pissing people off, and it caught up with him in the end.
It's going to happen to us. That, Cam, right?
Yeah, it's this whole cannibalistic tendency that had taken Rome into the crisis of the 3rd century and kept it there for so long. He kept it at bay for an incredibly long time. When you think about it, 15 years is remarkable. Put down 5 usurpers, I think, or thereabouts during his reign. But ultimately, it caught up to him. It caught up to him, as it would catch up to Aurelian, extraordinary Aurelian, as it would catch up to extraordinary Probus. And Matteo and I talk about this all the time. It plagued the West. The East kind of figured this out, or would figure it out in the centuries to come. But the West never did. And
Good point. Yeah.
And then they obviously end up getting finally sacked by the Goths. And as I always like to point out, the Goths were Christians at that point. So, and there's nothing sexier than Christian on Christian violence.
Yeah.
Preach.
We love a bit of that, and it's one of the great ironies when you read, some of the authors from the early 5th century complaining about the Goths, these Christian authors post Theodosius, and they're like, yeah, but these are Christians that came in and raped and pillaged the Christian Rome. Your Christian barbarians came in. They were
The best.
different variety of Christians for
Different
a while,
brand.
but they were still Christians.
Yeah, the Christian Goths,
Yeah.
the Christian Vandals. It was. There's a really great book, guys, called The Darkening Age, which we'd highly recommend, which talks about.
We read it.
Uh,
Catherine somebody.
it's Catherine
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah. Damn good book.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And, again, it's always fascinating to me when books like that give you a different perspective on the history that you kind of absorb through osmosis over the course of your life. When people ask me how I got into history in the first place, I always tell them the story. I read a book on Napoleon when I was about 19 or 20. A friend of mine at the time, my age, said, you know anything about Napoleon? I said, no. He goes, I got to read this book. It's a great book. I grew up in Australia, part of the British Commonwealth. We have a view of Napoleon as like an earlier version of Hitler, this warmonger, bad guy, etc., etc. I read this book by Vincent Cronin, who was an American historian, wrote a book on Napoleon in 1971. I read this and I was like, holy shit, this guy was amazing. Yeah. This guy stood up to the united monarchs of Europe, protected the French Revolution for decades, kicked everybody's ass time and time until he eventually ran out of men and money, and they just kept coming at him, coalition after coalition after coalition, until he couldn't do it anymore. He had his flaws, he made his mistakes, but really he was smart, he was brilliant. Let's not talk about the Ridley Scott film because I'm still angry about that, but but then you read a book like that and you go, holy crap, how did I not know this? Why is this not the version of the story that I was given? Which is the true? Then you start going, okay, well, I better read another book on Napoleon to see what they say. And then you read another, and then you realize there's no one version of the truth with history, right? There's perspectives, there's cognitive biases, there's cultural biases, and it's up to us to read it and figure out for ourselves, what do I think happened? Like you mentioned before, Matthew, this is the story or the tradition that has been passed down to us. We always have to say that, like, when we're reading Tacitus or we're reading Suetonius, look, is this what happened? We don't know. This is a version of the story that's been handed down to us.
Yeah.
Whether we know Tacitus had biases, he hated women, he hated, Nero and Caligula because they wanted to party. He had his own issues with various regimes. It's the same with these guys too, and I wanted to finish with that. So I mentioned at the beginning that Gallienus had sort of got short thrift from history for a long time, but recently we've started to rehabilitate him. Why do you think he was treated so harshly in the centuries after his demise?
Son?
Well, I mean, like you said, like, it's important to just remember that history and every historian ever had an agenda. And at the end of the day, history is written by the winners and it's in the eyes of the beholders. So it's important for us to, like, make the best effort that we can to try to understand what was really happening in the time. And I think that when it comes to ancient Rome, especially the crisis of the 3rd century, where there's not a lot of promising sources, is that we have to take into account what's going on throughout the most recent history of that period. And in the crisis of the 3rd century, I mean,
yeah, and the Serbian general or captain was not sitting. He was not doing a Marcus Aurelius at night, writing notes about how wonderful Gallienus was. That guy was illiterate. It were the senators that were stewing back in the baths in Rome, saying that should have been me. Those are the guys that wrote the history.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah. And he lost Gaul. He lost Gaul. I wouldn't have
that guy.
lost Gaul. Yeah. So
And took their
That's all.
glory.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Matteo, do you know who said history is written by the victors?
No, we did say that. That
Napoleon.
Well, I didn't
See
know
how we
that.
came full circle?
full circle.
Full
That's
circle.
awesome.
There.
He said, "How will I be remembered?" Well, history is written by the victors, so probably not well.
And he was right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Okay. Any final parting notes, gentlemen, before we let you get on with your hot Miami nights?
Which is
I
the
would
name of our next album. Go ahead.
Miami
No,
Nights,
go ahead. Go ahead.
That's the next podcast. Here we go.
I think Will Smith beat us to it. but-
Oh, good point.
Tupac Shakur.
No, listen,
Oh.
this was awesome. We love joining you guys. Thanks for giving us a chance to talk about some obscure dude who we think was awesome and gets terribly maligned.
And hopefully we changed a little bit of you or your viewers' perspective so that when you guys actually get around to covering Gallienus, you could have a little more than one page to talk about.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Good point.
Well, we were going to finish after Vespasian. We were going to wrap it up. We already finished once. When we did Nero, we said, that's it, we're done. And we took a year off, and then we were forced to come back.
We retired once and then
we
came back.
We ran out of Coke money, and our dealers in Miami were getting...
So, yeah. Maybe you could
they were running out of money.
send us. Anyway, we'll talk off air. Don't worry about that.
And we were gonna end after Vespasian, but now I kind of want to go and do the crisis of the third century. We've got to keep going now for another 10 years.
Keep going and invite us back when you get to Majorian and Aetius. That's good stuff. We would love to join you again.
And obviously featuring a big
Elagabalus,
podcast like us.
I want to get to.
Not Elagabalus. Don't bring us back for that one.
No.
Now he's making requests. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. So, LostRomanHeroes.com. We know we don't put out enough episodes to satiate our
So now
Roman history fans. So check out LostRomanHeroes.com. Hey, congratulations on the podcast and congratulations on doing the father-son thing. I'm very jealous. I wish.
Yes.
My kids are TikTokers. That's what they think is cool. They do. It's not.
Get rid of them. Start
What
over.
Yeah. I did. I've got an 11-year-old.
Yes. That's a great
He's not
idea. I'm going to get married again.
He's not interested in history, but he's interested in quantum physics. And he said to me the other day, he said to me, so how do we know the universe is infinite? And I sort of explained it. And he goes, and I said, will we ever get to the edge and check it out? And I go, we can't because the universe is expanding faster than we'll ever be able to get to it. He goes, so the sun's going to explode and humans will all die and we'll never know what's at the edge of the universe. And I said, yeah. And he goes, man, that's so depressing. So I was like,
philosophy too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's good thought for an 11-year-old. Existential.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry. It's going to be okay.
As an 11-year-old.
It's going to be okay. I would say introduce him to Crusader Kings and or Rome Total War and watch the passion kind of go from there. It's Trojan horse.
Well, my younger boys and I used to play my older boys and I used to play Age of Empires when they were his age. I thought that would have been the thing, but didn't get him in the Goonies. Anyway, hey, thanks for coming on, guys. It was a lot of fun. We should have you on more often. Like anytime you want to suggest someone to come on and talk about, hit us up. It means I can actually have an intelligent conversation for once rather than just dealing with Ray.
Yeah. Very frustrating. Trust me.
Far more entertaining.
I can imagine. Guys, this was awesome. Thank you so very much.